Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and I want to talk about intellectual property, and I want to talk about Canon, and I want to talk about the opportunity that the Dungeons & Dragons community has to impact the world and to really change things for all of humanity. So it's really fascinating. Okay, let's get right into this. You guys are so patient with me because my mind connects things. When I see connections, I get excited about connections. So I think there's something really special happening with Dungeons and Dragons canon, and I get incredibly beneficial comments. In the comments, they're like, Scott, you don't understand how copyright law works, and that's why you don't understand that Warhammer isn't connected to Dungeons and Dragons, right? And I'm like, no, you don't understand copyright law. Let's get into it. All right, so basically, all right, does Warhammer connect to Dungeons and Dragons? Okay, Wizards of the Coast will tell you no, it does not, because we told you it didn't. Right? Our corporate suits put a little memo over there saying, oh hey, it doesn't connect, and I'm like, okay, all right, Jasper, whatever your name is, with your Gucci suit and your stupid tie, right? You don't understand, right? You say it's not canon because the suits at Games Workshop and the suits at WotC are all, came out of Yale and have never played Dungeons and Dragons and never played Warhammer, and all they know is like a tranche, but they do know the SOFR rate on a tranche, right? And they're like, these don't connect. It's important that you understand these don't connect. But the problem is, the D&D design team and the Warhammer design team agreed on a product, and that product is being sold. And you know what's in that product? The Soul Ring, right? The Soul Ring is a Dominaria magic item that was put directly into Forgotten Realms with a printing of a magic card and was put directly into the Warhammer realm. And by narrative logic and lore, and anyone who reads the product, looks at the art, looks at the promotion, looks at the packaging, says, of course, these worlds are connected. This is a Planeswalker world, right? Games Workshop, you're taking your little Warhammer world and you're connecting it to a world with Planeswalkers, and we know your stupid tie suits didn't read any of the source material, but this is a world filled with Planeswalkers, right? And these Planeswalkers, Liliana Vess, queen of all of them, right, is in Strixhaven, which is a 100% Magic the Gathering world and a 100% D&D world, right? So your suits are ignorant. They are nescient, right? They don't know. Right? And they're like, oh, these worlds don't connect. And the only person you convinced was Westeros Grognard, because he doesn't think for himself. He believes what he's told, right? He doesn't read the material, and he doesn't understand or know, right? So the reality is, we are here because copyright law is 2 decades behind. Copyright law does not have any concept of canon. None of it's been written. You guys aren't aware. I am, because I'm an author, right? Right now, there is one of the largest conversations ever happening on the merger of 2 huge publishers, right? And like I've been watching this lady who she's talking to novelists. She knows novelists, right? And the novelists are saying, hey, what's happening here? The law doesn't understand. They're taking 6 months, 12 months breaks to just get the law to catch up with the concepts that are being talked about. And I can tell you right now, the copyright law does not have any clue what canon even means, right? And we, the Dungeons & Dragons community, are farther out on this than any intellectual property, any imagination engine that has ever been created. And the reason why is we're ahead on narrative. Like, humans have been telling stories, since we could scrawl, our own blood on a cave wall, right? But we are reaching a point where the creatives are doing stuff that the suits and the judges don't have the language to even discuss, right? So you're saying I don't understand copyright law. You don't understand copyright law. Copyright law doesn't have any structure to deal with canon. No one knows right now if canon can be legally controlled or even understood by a corporation, right? And I can tell you right now, I started Dungeons & Dragons in 1982, 8 years after its birth. I was there when Magic the Gathering was born. I understand the narrative, the logic, and the lore of both of these. And I have people in the comments who just don't know. They don't understand Magic the Gathering, or they a lot of them understand D&D, but they don't understand the history of Dungeons & Dragons, which means they really don't have the language for these conversations. And I can tell you right now, I understand the narrative, logic, and lore of Dungeons & Dragons probably better than most people on this planet, and I definitely understand the narrative, logic, and lore of Magic the Gathering. I've seen every single year, right? All 30. I've been here, and I've been watching them, and I've been at every pre-release, and I never stopped, right? So I understand the narrative and logic and lore, and I can tell you right now, if you understand the narrative, logic, and lore of Dungeons & Dragons, and you understand the narrative, logic, and lore of Warhammer, Necromancers, Tau, like Space Marines, Chaos, I know all of these properties. And if you simply read the narrative, the logic, and the lore, it is crystal clear that the creatives are massively connecting these worlds, right? With objects, with characters, with locations, with events, with relationships. And the suits are completely nescient of what is happening, right? So the copyright law is what we say it will be. And the reason why is when the law comes, they say what do average citizens believe, right? And Dungeons & Dragons used to be niche. Thanks to Matthew Mercer, it is very much not niche. It is becoming not niche, right? There are people who don't play D&D who very much care about D&D. I had a person come into my game and she played for 1 week, literally 1 week. She watches Mercer, she came in, she bounced out of the game quickly, right? Because she's like, I got to commit 4 hours a week to my life to this. I have to get my spouse to understand what this is. He doesn't have the language for it. He doesn't understand what I'm doing, and I can't explain it to him, right? So she bounced out, and now she just looks over at D&D, right, longingly, and she watches Mercer. Knows about D&D, doesn't understand it. And there are going to be millions of these people, right? And we will decide what copyright law is going to be because we are shaping that conversation right now. And I am here to tell you that the Dungeons & Dragons is special, Magic the Gathering is special, and Warhammer is special. And the West Coast Grognard, and the reason I talk about him is he's a template for 1,000 other old Grognards, right? Well, old Grognard is redundant. For 1,000 other Grognards who are just nescient, marinated in nescience, do not understand what is happening, right? And don't understand that this is in our hands. Dungeons & Dragons is special. The D&D community is special. Magic the Gathering is special. Warhammer is special, right? And the reality is the law will catch up to us. And when they get here with the conversation, we are doing the work now to say Canon is unique. Companies don't control Canon. Communities control Canon. And that's what you need to understand. Companies control official. They say what the official content is. They do not control Canon. Proof of this, right? Highlander. Every Highlander fan will say Highlander 1 is canon. They'll say, we don't even know what Highlander 2 is. They couldn't name a character from it. They watched it once and forgot it immediately because it's not canon, right? It's official, but it's not canon, right? And there are judges who are going to have to get knee deep, right? And nescient people would say nerd culture. This isn't nerd culture. This is power culture. Dungeons & Dragons community is a filter for the most charismatic, confident, intelligent people in the world. We are on the front lines of the battles of language, right? These are bloodless battles. These are battles of concept. And we are deciding now when copyright catches up to what we're doing, what Dungeons & Dragons community is doing, and what the creatives at the Dungeons & Dragons design team have done, that's when copyright will actually have something to say about canon. Right now, copyright law doesn't have anything to say about canon because copyright law isn't even aware of canon, right? And the other issue is, why is this? Sacreds have known about canon for 2 millennia. Canon is the 66 books of the Bible, and we have a word for non-canon. It's called Apocrypha, right? But the secular world is just now catching up. right? Because the sacred's always understood words were important, and the seculars are catching up now. That's why we, D&D community, we determine canon. WotC determines official, right? And we pay attention to what's official so we can decide what is canon. That's the skibbity-doo. That's the layout, right? And West Coast Grognard is not an idiot. He's very smart. He'll understand all of this a year from now. He'll understand a portion of this a year from now. He's in the pool, the shallow end. He'll get his floaties at some point and catch up. All that's my humble opinion, and I'm ready to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking, subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.